The meal tray was untouched again. Clara stopped at the bedroom door and felt her stomach clench. It was the third time that week it had happened. Doña Alba had barely touched the plate. The broth was cold, the bread hard, the cut fruit already browning at the edges. Clara entered slowly, picked up the tray, and looked toward the bed. The old woman was sleeping on her side, so small beneath the comforter that she looked like a child. Her facial bones jutted out. Her hands were too thin. Clara felt a knot in her chest and left without a sound. She had been working in that mansion for almost 10 years. She knew every corner, every piece of furniture, every routine. But in the last few weeks something had changed. Doña Alba was fading, not suddenly, but little by little, as if she were wasting away from the inside. Clara saw her getting thinner, quieter, more distant, and no one seemed to notice, or worse, no one wanted to notice. As she went down the stairs with the tray in her hands, she heard laughter from the living room. It was Lucia, Doña Alba's daughter-in-law, Andres' wife, the master of the house. She was on the sofa, in front of her cell phone, recording stories for her. Social media, designer clothes, impeccable makeup, perfect smile. Everything about her screamed luxury. Everything about her seemed calculated. "Good morning, Clara," Lucia said without taking her eyes off the phone. "Good morning, Mrs. Lucia," Clara replied. "Did Alba's meal come back almost untouched again?" Lucia asked, finally looking at her. But there was no concern in her gaze. There was something else, something that made Clara's skin crawl without being able to explain it. "Yes, ma'am. She barely touched anything." Lucia sighed, as if it were a trivial annoyance. "She is very weak. I don't know what to do. I've tried everything." The voice was perfect, convincing, but Clara knew silk-dressed lies when she heard them. Clara nodded and continued toward the kitchen. She threw away the food, washed the dishes, and stood looking out the window. Outside, the garden was spotless. Well cared for flowers, neatly trimmed lawn, crystal clear fountains. Everything beautiful, everything perfect. But inside, that house was rotting. Clara felt it in her bones. She went back up to the second floor under the pretext of tidying the rooms. She walked down the hallway and stopped at the door to Doña Alba's bedroom. The old woman was awake now, sitting in bed, staring into space. Clara entered carefully. "Doña Alba, do you need anything?" The old woman slowly turned her face. Her eyes were sunken, tired, but they still shone with a flicker of lucidity. "Clara, you're the only one who sees me." A shiver ran down Clara's spine. "What do you mean, ma'am?" Alba lowered her gaze to her own hands. "No one else sees me. My son is always traveling, and she—" her voice trembled. "She doesn't want me to be here." Clara swallowed. This was not delirium. This was fear. "Are you talking about Mrs. Lucia?" Alba didn't answer. She just closed her eyes slowly, like someone giving up. Clara left with her heart pounding, went down the stairs, and headed straight for the service area. She needed to breathe. She needed to think. Something was very wrong in that house, and if no one else wanted to see, she was going to see for everyone. That afternoon, Clara decided to pay attention to everything, every movement, every word, every habit. And that's when she noticed it. Lucia went up to Alba's room 3 times a day, always with a small tray, always with medications, always alone, and she always locked the door from the inside. Clara had never noticed that before, or maybe she never wanted to. Later, when Lucia left for a charity meeting, as she loved to announce, Clara went up to Alba's room. The old woman was sleeping again. Clara looked around. Everything seemed normal until she saw it. On the nightstand next to the glass of water there were 3 blister packs of medication. Clara picked up one and read the label. It was not in Alba's medical history. She picked up another strange medicine. And the third, something Clara knew the old woman had never taken. Her heart pounded. None of this was right. Alba had no prescription for half of those drugs. Clara photographed everything with her cell phone, as silently as possible, and left the boxes exactly as they were. When she went downstairs, Lucia had already returned. She was still in the living room, smiling at the camera, talking about solidarity and family. Clara walked past her without saying anything. But inside, something had changed. She was no longer just the housekeeper who cleaned the house. She was the only witness to a crime that was still happening. And Clara knew that if she didn't do something, Doña Alba would die there, slowly, while her daughter-in-law smiled for the cameras, pretending to be the perfect wife. That night, before leaving, Clara looked one last time toward the second floor. The light in Doña Alba's room was on, but the curtains were closed. As always, as if the old woman didn't even have the right to daylight. Clara squeezed her purse strap and took a deep breath. She had to uncover the truth, whatever the cost, because some things couldn't be ignored, and Doña Alba's life was one of them. Clara didn't sleep all night. She tossed and turned, thinking about the medications, the old woman's vacant stare, Lucia's coldness. When the alarm clock rang at 5 a.m., she had been awake for hours. She showered quickly, took the bus, and arrived at the mansion before 7. She needed to understand what was happening, and she needed evidence. Lucia was still asleep. The house was silent. Clara went up the stairs carefully, carrying a tray with tea and toast for Doña Alba. It was part of the routine, but this time she was going to observe every detail. She knocked gently and entered. Alba was sitting in an armchair near the window, looking out, or rather, looking at nothing. Clara put the tray on the side table. "Good morning, Doña Alba. I brought your tea." The old woman slowly turned her face. She looked confused, as if she didn't recognize her own room. "What time is it?" she asked in a weak voice. 7:15, ma'am." Alba frowned as if that didn't make sense. "I slept all day again." Clara felt her chest tighten. This wasn't normal. No one slept that much without a reason, or rather, without help. "Did you take your medication last night?" Alba nodded slowly. "Lucia always brings them. She says they are the doctor's orders, but I don't remember going to the doctor." Clara swallowed hard. There it was, the medication. Lucia was doping the old woman. She was keeping Doña Alba sedated, weak, confused, and no one suspected because the perfect daughter-in-law was pretending to care for her. "Ma'am, do you know the name of those medications?" Alba shook her head. "No. Lucia won't let me see them. She says I don't need to worry, that she takes care of everything." Clara took a deep breath. She needed to be careful. If Lucia suspected she knew something, everything could get worse. "And Andres? Does he know you are taking these medicines?" The old woman lowered her gaze. "My son is always traveling. When he is here, Lucia tells him I'm fine, and he believes her. He always believed her." Alba's voice trembled. "He doesn't see me anymore, Clara. He looks at me, but he doesn't see me." Clara felt anger rise in her throat. Andres was a good man, hard-working, dedicated, but he was blind. He trusted his wife too much, and Lucia was using that as a weapon. Just then the door burst open. Lucia entered smiling, but her eyes were hard as knives. "Good morning, Alba. Good morning, Clara." Clara took a step back. "Good morning, Mrs. Lucia. I just brought the tea." Lucia looked at the tray. Then she looked at Clara. "That's kind of you, but I handle her feeding. You don't need to come up here without telling me." The sentence was polite, but it held venom. Clara understood the message. "Of course, Mrs. Lucia. Excuse me." She left the room, feeling Lucia's gaze fixed on her back like a threat. She went downstairs with a racing heart. The situation was worse than she imagined. Lucia was not only cruel, she was smart, controlling, and now she knew Clara was paying too much attention. Clara cleaned the house on autopilot all morning. Her mind was elsewhere. She needed solid evidence, something that would force Andres to see the truth. But Lucia controlled everything, the medicines, the meals, the visits, even the old woman's calls to her son. And then Clara had an idea. The cell phone. She could record She could hide her phone in the old woman's room and capture a conversation between Lucia and Alba, or better yet, a threat. Because Clara was sure, Lucia was not just negligent. She was cruel, deliberately cruel. That afternoon, when Lucia left for the beauty salon, Clara acted fast. She went up to Alba's room, placed an old backup cell phone behind a vase on the dresser, hidden but with the camera pointing toward the bed. She started continuous recording and left the room. Her heart was beating so hard she thought she might faint. At 6 o'clock that evening, Lucia returned. Impeccable hair, manicured nails, expensive perfume. She went straight up with the medicine tray. Clara stayed in the hallway, pretending to arrange the bedding in the closet. She pressed her ear to the wall and tried to listen. Lucia's voice was low, but firm. "Take your pills, Alba, all of them." Silence. "I said take them." The old woman's voice was a thread. "I don't want to anymore. They make me dizzy. You are going to take them. Because if you don't take them, I will tell Andres that you are losing your mind, that you are having delusions, that you need to be institutionalized. Is that what you want?" Clara bit her lip to keep from screaming. That was a direct threat. "Please, I just want to talk to my son. Your son trusts me. He believes everything I say, and if I say you are mentally ill, he will believe it. So take the pills and be quiet." Clara heard the sound of water, then footsteps. The door opened. Lucia left the room. She walked past Clara without saying anything, but with a triumphant smile. Clara waited a few minutes, entered the room, grabbed the cell phone, and rushed down to the laundry room. She closed the door, opened the video, and watched it. It was there. The threat, the manipulation, the coldness. It was gold. It was the proof she needed. But there was a problem. Andres had been traveling for 2 weeks. He wouldn't be back until the end of the month. What if it was too late by then? Clara made a decision. She would send the video in an anonymous email, without her name, just so he would know he needed to come back. And fast. That night, before leaving, Clara sent the email. "Your home needs you. Come back before it's too late." She put away the cell phone and left the mansion. She looked back. The lights were on. Everything. Flawless on the outside, but inside that house hid something rotten. And Clara had just lit the fuse of a bomb. It was only a matter of time. Clara didn't sleep well again. She checked her cell phone every half hour, hoping for a reply from Andres. But nothing. The email had been delivered, but there was no sign that he had read it. Maybe he was too busy. Or maybe Lucia had access to his account and deleted the message before he saw it. Clara no longer knew whom to trust. When she arrived at the mansion the next morning, the house was strangely silent. Lucia was not in the living room nor the kitchen. Clara went up the stairs slowly, her heart pounding. She passed Alba's room and saw the door slightly ajar. She peered inside. The old woman was sleeping, but her breathing was erratic, heavy. Clara felt a knot in her throat. Then she heard voices in the study, at the end of the hall. The door was closed, but she could hear it. It was Lucia talking on the phone. Clara approached silently and put her ear to the wood. "Yes, Mom. It's taking longer than I expected." Lucia's voice was cold, sharp, but she's getting weaker every day. The medication is working. I just need a few more weeks. Clara felt her legs tremble. Silence. Lucia listened to the other person. "No, he doesn't suspect anything. Andres trusts me blindly. And when she dies, it will look natural. A frail old woman who stopped eating. No one will ask any questions." Another pause. "Yes, the will has already been changed. I managed to get her to sign it in front of the lawyer. She was so doped up she didn't even know what she was doing." Clara covered her mouth to keep from crying out. This was not negligence. It was premeditated murder. Lucia had planned everything with a surgeon's precision. The mansion will be in my name, the jewelry too, and there are over 3 million in shares she left to Andres, but I'm going to convince him to invest them in my company. In the end, it all comes back to me. Lucia laughed, an icy laugh. That old woman has been in the way for too long. Clara felt tears sting her eyes. It was a perfect trap. Lucia had woven everything, every detail. Clara ran down to the kitchen, trembling. She took out her cell phone and recorded an audio describing everything she had heard. Date, time, exact words. She uploaded it to the cloud. If anything happened to her, there had to be a record. That afternoon, when Lucia left for her social engagements, Clara ran to the study. The door was locked. She went to the kitchen, found the emergency key Andres had given her months ago, just in case. She went in. The study was spotless. Clara went straight to the desk, opened drawers, invoices, papers, documents, until she found a blue folder hidden under a pile. She opened it with trembling hands. They were copies of the old will and the new one. She compared the two. In the original, everything was divided between Andres and a charity organization Doña Alba had supported for years. In the new one, the mansion and the jewelry went to Lucia, and there was a strange clause. If Alba died within the next 6 months, Andres would inherit the shares, but Lucia would have the right to manage the assets in case of absence or incapacity of the heir. This was not a will. It was a carefully designed death sentence. Clara photographed every page, every signature. Alba's handwriting on the new will was shaky, almost illegible. Anyone could see she was in no condition to sign anything, but the lawyer had validated it anyway. Clara wrote down the lawyer's name. He was involved too. She put everything back as it was, locked the study, and returned the key. Her heart was pounding so hard it hurt, but she had the evidence. Now she just needed Andres to see it before it was too late. That evening, Clara was finishing cleaning the kitchen when she heard the front door open. Heavy footsteps. A man's voice. It was Andres. He was back. Clara felt a mix of relief and panic. He was finally here. But had he seen the email? Was he going to believe her? She dried her hands and went out to the living room. Andres was standing there, his suitcase next to him, his face tired. Lucia rushed down the stairs to hug him. What a surprise, darling. I didn't know you were coming back today. Andres gently pushed her away. I had to cut my trip short. I received a strange message. He looked around. Where is my mother? Lucia smiled with false calm. She's asleep. You know how she is, with age she sleeps earlier and earlier. Andres frowned. I want to see her. Not now, darling. She's resting. Tomorrow. I said I want to see her now. The tone was firm. Clara held her breath. Lucia swallowed but maintained her smile. Of course, I'll go wake her. Andres went upstairs without waiting for an answer. Lucia followed him. But before she did, she looked at Clara with such pure hatred that Clara's skin crawled. A silent message. You are going to pay for this. Clara stayed in the living room, her heart in her throat. She knew she had taken the first step, and she also knew that she was now a target. The war had begun, and there would be no turning back. From upstairs, Clara heard Andre's deep voice, incredulous, wounded. Mom, what happened to you? And Clara knew that nothing would ever be the same. Andres spent the entire night in Doña Alba's room. Clara heard his footsteps, his low voice talking to her, the heavy silence that enveloped the house. Lucia had locked herself in the bedroom and didn't come out again, but Clara knew that calm was a lie. Lucia was planning her next move, and Clara had to be prepared. The next morning, when Clara arrived, the tension could be cut with a knife. Andres was in the living room talking on the phone with a grim expression. Lucia was in the kitchen, drinking coffee as if nothing was wrong, but her eyes were cold, calculating. Clara passed by her without saying anything and began tidying the kitchen. She felt Lucia's gaze fixed on her back. Clara? Lucia's voice was soft but firm. Clara turned around. Yes, Mrs. Lucia. Lucia sipped her coffee and set the cup down on the table slowly. Were you checking the things in the study? Clara's heart stopped for a second, but she kept her face neutral. No, ma'am. I only clean where I'm told. Lucia tilted her head, like someone analyzing prey. Oh, really? Because I could swear I left some documents one way, and now they're another. Clara swallowed. It must have been the wind. Or maybe Mr. Andres was looking for something when he arrived. Lucia smiled, but it was an icy gesture. Perhaps. She stood up and walked past Clara slowly, stopping right next to her. Or perhaps someone is sticking their nose where it doesn't belong. Clara tightened the cloth in her hands. I am just doing my job, Mrs. Lucia. Then keep doing it. And only that. Lucia left the kitchen, leaving a trace of expensive perfume and threat. Clara took a deep breath. Lucia suspected. And if she suspected, she would act soon. Clara had to act even faster. All morning she tried to talk to Andres, but he was busy with doctors, work calls, and caring for his mother. Lucia didn't leave his side, clinging like a shadow, controlling every word, every movement. It was in the afternoon when everything collapsed. Clara was ironing clothes in the laundry room when she heard shouts from the living room. She dropped the iron and ran. Andres was standing, his face red with rage. Lucia was standing across from him, arms crossed, her expression cold as ice. What in God's name are you accusing me of? Lucia asked in a venomous voice. I'm saying my mother is unrecognizable, Andres retorted. She can barely stay awake. And you assured me she was fine. I took care of her, Andres. I gave her medication, her food, my attention. If she's not well, it's not my fault. Then whose is it? Andres pointed upstairs. My mother is dying and you did nothing. Lucia took a deep breath. And then, she delivered the perfect blow. Perhaps you should ask Clara. Clara felt her heart drop. What? Andres said, turning to her. Lucia took a step forward. Her voice sounded sweet, but it was pure poison. Clara has access to the entire house. She goes up to your mother's room without permission. She touches things she shouldn't. The other day I even saw her coming out of the study. Isn't that right, Clara? That's not true, Clara exploded, but Lucia didn't stop. And guess what else? She put a hand to her chest. Some of your mother's jewelry has gone missing. Small things. I didn't want to say anything because I didn't have proof. She looked at Clara with false sadness. But now it all makes sense. Clara felt her legs tremble. I have never stolen anything from this house, she said in a broken voice. Andres ran his hands over his face, exhausted. Lucia, are you saying Clara? I'm saying she is the only one with access to everything. And that strange things only started happening right when she became more interested in your mother's health. Lucia had twisted everything. The victim was now the suspect. Dr. Andres, I swear to God I was only trying to help Doña Alba, Clara pleaded. Enough. Andres' voice was a sharp blow. I can't take this anymore. I don't know who is telling the truth. Lucia gently touched her husband's arm with false compassion. Darling, I know this is difficult, but we have to protect your mother. And if there's someone here who can't be trusted. She looked at Clara like a knife. It's better if she leaves. Clara felt the world crash down on her. Dr. Andres, please. Andres raised his hand. Clara, I'm going to ask you to leave now. But I didn't do anything. I said now. Clara felt her entire body shaking. She looked at Lucia and saw the discreet Victoria smile, hidden in the corner of her lips. She had won. Clara went up to the laundry room, picked up her purse with trembling hands. Tears ran down her face, but she made no sound. She wouldn't give Lucia that satisfaction. Before leaving, she passed by Doña Alba's room. The door was closed, and Clara knew the old woman was in there, alone, defenseless, and now with no one to protect her. She walked slowly down the stairs. She passed through the living room. Andres was sitting on the sofa, his head in his hands. Lucia was beside him, stroking his back, consoling him, faking it. When Clara walked past, Lucia looked up and smiled, a cold, almost celebratory triumph. Clara walked out the front door feeling the weight of defeat. She had lost her job. She had lost Andres's trust. But the worst was leaving Doña Alba at the mercy of a murderer. She walked to the gate, past the guard, and left. The sun left. The D was shining brightly, but Clara felt cold. She looked at her cell phone, the photos, the documents, the evidence. She still had one last card to play, one last way to save the old woman. But now, she would have to do it alone, against a woman with no limits. Clara took a deep breath and began to walk. She wasn't going to give up, not while she had the strength left. From upstairs, Clara heard Andre's deep, wounded, incredulous voice. "Mom, what happened to you?" And Clara knew that nothing would be the same. Andre spent the whole night in Doña Alba's room. Clara heard his footsteps, his low voice talking to her, the heavy silence that enveloped the house. Lucia had locked herself in the bedroom and didn't come out again, but Clara knew that calm was a lie. Lucia was planning her next move, and Clara had to be prepared. The next morning, when Clara arrived, the tension was palpable. Andres was in the living room talking on the phone with a grim expression. Lucia was in the kitchen drinking coffee as if nothing was wrong, but her eyes were cold, calculating. Clara walked past her without saying anything and began tidying the kitchen. She felt Lucia's gaze fixed on her back. "Clara?" Lucia's voice was soft but firm. Clara turned around. "Yes, Mrs. Lucia." Lucia sipped her coffee and set the cup down on the table, slowly. "Were you checking the things in the study?" Clara's heart stopped for a second, but she kept her face neutral. "No, ma'am. I only clean where I'm instructed." Lucia tilted her head like someone analyzing prey. "Oh, really? Because I could swear I left some documents one way and now they're another." Clara swallowed. It must have been the wind, or maybe Mr. Andres looked for something when he arrived. Lucia smiled, but it was an icy gesture. Perhaps. She stood up and walked past Clara slowly, stopping right next to her. Or perhaps someone is sticking their nose where it doesn't belong. Clara tightened the cloth in her hands. "I am just doing my job, Mrs. Lucia." "Then keep doing it, and only that." Lucia left the kitchen, leaving a trace of expensive perfume and threat. Clara took a deep breath. Lucia suspected. And if she suspected, she would act soon. Clara had to act even faster. All morning she tried to speak with Andres, but he was busy with doctors, work calls, and caring for his mother. Lucia didn't leave his side, clinging like a shadow, controlling every word, every movement. It was in the afternoon when everything collapsed. Clara was ironing clothes in the laundry room when she heard shouting from the living room. She dropped the iron and ran. Andres was standing, his face red with rage. Lucia was across from him, arms crossed, her expression cold as ice. "What the hell are you accusing me of?" Lucia asked in a poisonous voice. "I'm saying my mother is unrecognizable," Andres replied. "She can barely stay awake, and you assured me she was fine." "I took care of her, Andres. I gave her medication, her food, my attention. If she's not well, it's not my fault." "Then whose is it?" Andres pointed upstairs. "My mother is dying and you did nothing." Lucia took a deep breath, and then she delivered the perfect blow. "Maybe you should ask Clara." Clara felt her soul drop to the floor. "What?" Andres said, turning toward her. Lucia stepped forward. Her voice sounded sweet, but it was pure poison. "Clara has access to the whole house. She goes up to your mother's room without permission. She touches things she shouldn't. The other day, I even saw her leaving the study. Isn't that right, Clara?" "That's not true," Clara exploded. But Lucia didn't stop. "And guess what else?" She put a hand to her chest. "Some of your mother's jewelry has gone missing. Small things. I didn't want to say anything because I didn't have proof." She looked at Clara with false sadness. "But now it all makes sense." Clara felt her legs tremble. "I have never stolen anything from this house," she said, in a broken voice. Andres ran his hands over his face, exhausted. "Lucia, are you saying Clara?" "I'm saying she is the only one with access to everything, and that the strange things only started happening right when she became more interested in your mother's health." Lucia had twisted everything. The victim, was now the suspect. Dr. Andres, I swear to God I was only trying to help Doña Alba, Clara pleaded. Enough. Andres's voice was a sharp blow. I can't take this anymore. I don't know who is telling the truth. Lucia gently touched her husband's arm with false compassion. Darling, I know this is difficult, but we have to protect your mother. And if there's someone here who can't be trusted, she looked at Clara like a knife. It's better if she leaves. Clara felt the world collapse on her. Dr. Andres, please. Andres raised his hand. Clara, I'm going to ask you to leave now. But I didn't do anything. I said now. Clara felt her entire body shaking. She looked at Lucia and saw the discreet, victorious smile hidden in the corner of her lips. She had won. Clara went up to the laundry room, grabbed her purse with trembling hands. Tears ran down her face, but she made no sound. She wouldn't give Lucia that satisfaction. Before leaving, she passed by Doña Alba's room. The door was closed, and Clara knew the old woman was in there, alone, defenseless, and now with no one to protect her. She walked slowly down the stairs. She passed through the living room. Andres was sitting on the sofa, his head in his hands. Lucia was beside him, stroking his back, consoling him, faking it. When Clara walked past, Lucia looked up and smiled. A cold triumph, almost celebrated. Clara walked out the front door feeling the weight of defeat. She had lost her job. She had lost Andres's trust. But the worst was leaving Doña Alba at the mercy of a murderer. She walked to the gate, past the guard, and left. The sun was shining brightly, but Clara felt cold. She looked at her cell phone. The photos, the documents, the evidence. She still had one last card, one last way to save the old woman. But now, she would have to do it alone, against a woman with no limits. Clara took a deep breath and began to walk. She wasn't going to give up. Not while she still had the strength. Clara spent 2 days without knowing what to do. She slept little, ate even less. The evidence was on her cell phone, but what good was it if no one believed her? Andres had chosen Lucia's side, and now Doña Alba was completely alone. On the morning of the third day, Clara made a decision. She would not send any more anonymous emails. She would not wait for Andres to figure it out himself. She was going to the mansion. She was going to knock on the door. She was going to show him everything face to face. And even if he still didn't believe her, at least she would have tried. She took the bus with her heart pounding in her chest. When she got off in front of the mansion, she hesitated. The guard was at the entrance. Would he let her pass? Or had Lucia already ordered that she not be allowed near? She took a deep breath and walked forward. The guard, Don Mateo, an older, kind man, looked at her surprised. Clara, what are you doing here? I need to talk to Mr. Andres. It's urgent. Don Mateo looked toward the house and then back at her. Look, Mrs. Lucia made it clear that you can't come in. I know, but this is about Doña Alba. She's in danger. The guard frowned. Danger how? Clara lowered her voice. Mrs. Lucia is hurting her, with medications, with everything. I have proof. Don Mateo's eyes widened, serious. Clara, are you sure? Absolutely sure. If I don't talk to Andres now, it might be too late. The guard took a deep breath. He left 20 minutes ago. He went to his office downtown, but he should be back soon. Clara felt frustration clench her chest. And Mrs. Lucia? She left too. She went to the club, said she would be a while. Then an idea came to Clara. Dangerous, but necessary. Don Mateo, we worked together for 2 years. Do you trust me? The guard looked at her for a long time. Yes, I trust you. Then let me in for 10 minutes. Just 10. I need to get something I forgot. Something that can save Doña Alba. Don Mateo looked around, nervous. Then he slowly opened the gate. 10 minutes. And if anyone asks, I saw nothing. Clara ran inside. She went up to the laundry room and pulled a key from the pocket of her old uniform. the copy of the study key that Andres had given her months ago. She had forgotten to return it, and now, that key could change everything. She entered the study. She went straight to the desk. She turned on Andres's computer. It had no password. He trusted people too much. She opened the email, and there it was, the message she had sent. Marked as read, Andres had seen it. So, why hadn't he done anything? Clara checked and saw something worse. There was a reply sent. From the couple's joint account, the one Lucia also used. "Darling, I got this weird message in your email. I think it's some trolling or someone trying to harm us. I already deleted the video because it looked like a virus. Don't worry. Kisses, Lou." Clara felt rage burn in her chest. Lucia had intercepted everything. She had deleted the video. She had made Andres think it was a lie. But Clara still had the original files. She connected her cell phone to the computer and sent everything to Andres's personal email, the work one, which Lucia did not have access to. 6 files. The videos of the threats, the photos of the medications, the images of the fake will, and the audios describing everything. In the subject line, she wrote, "The truth about your mother. Please see it before it's too late. Sending. Done." She disconnected the cell phone, turned off the computer, closed everything as it was, and left the study. As she walked down the stairs, when she heard the front door, voices, footsteps, her heart stopped. Someone had arrived. It was Andres. And he wasn't alone. Lucia was with him. "Darling, are you okay? You seem nervous," she said softly. "I'm tired, Lou. That's all," he replied, exhausted. Clara hid behind the wall. She had to leave without being seen. But how? "I'm going to check on your mother," Lucia said. "I'll go with you." "No need. Rest, dear. I'll take care of her." Andres didn't answer. Lucia went up the stairs. Clara waited for her to pass, then started down. But a step creaked. Andres turned. "Is someone there?" Clara froze. There was no escape now. She walked down slowly, her face burning with shame and fear. "Clara." Andres's eyes widened, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "Mr. Andres, I came because I told you to leave," he said, weary. "I know, but Doña Alba is in danger, and I needed you to know." Andres ran his hand over his face. "Clara, please don't make things more complicated. I didn't steal anything, Mr. Andres. I swear to you, and everything I did was to try to protect your mother." Clara's voice trembled. "I don't know if you believe me, but please check your work email. I just sent it to you, everything is there. And if you still think I'm lying, I will never come back." Andres frowned, confused. "What email?" Clara took a deep breath. "The one that explains everything Mrs. Lucia is doing. The medications, the will, the threats." Andres took out his cell phone, opened his work email, and the expression on his face changed instantly. Confusion, shock, horror. He played one of the videos. Although the volume was low, Lucia's cold voice threatening Alba could be heard. Andres went pale. Is this real?" "Yes," Clara said with tears in her eyes. "I recorded it, because without proof, no one would believe me." He kept looking. The photos, the documents, the audios. His hand trembled. When he finished, he looked up. He had tears in his eyes. "My God, I didn't know. I trusted her. You couldn't have known, Mr. Andres. She is very clever. She manipulated everything." Andres wiped his tears with his hand. His expression changed. Pain, and then fury. "Where is she?" "She went up to Doña Alba's room." Andres' gaze hardened in a way Clara had never seen before. "Stay. Here. Don't move." He ran up the stairs. Clara stood there, trembling. She heard the room door burst open. Andres' voice, deep, full of rage. "Let her go right now." And then, silence. A silence that changed everything. The silence that announced that the truth finally had exploded. Clara went up. Clara. Slowly. She needed to see. She needed to make sure Doña Alba was okay. When she reached the room door, she stopped. Andres was standing in the center of the room, cell phone in hand, face red with fury. Lucia, leaning against the wall, arms crossed, her expression cold. And Doña Alba, in bed, eyes wide open, scared. "Are you crazy?" Lucia screamed. "Believing an employee instead of trusting your wife." Andres raised the cell phone. "I saw everything, Lucia. The videos, the photos, the audios, everything." Lucia took a step forward. "And you think that's real?" "She could have manipulated it. Edited it, made it up. Anyone can do that." "Then explain the medications," Andres said, pointing to the nightstand. "Explain why my mother is taking medicines she never took in her life." Lucia opened her mouth, but no sound came out. The lie had crumbled. "What doctor?" Andres asked, his voice harsh. "What is his name?" Lucia hesitated. Only a second, but it was enough. "It was a specialist," she murmured, "from a private clinic. He did house calls. And why have I never heard of him? Why did you never show me prescriptions, reports, anything?" Lucia opened her mouth again, but no words came out. Andres gritted his teeth. "It's over. Enough lies." It was then that something in Lucia's face changed. The mask broke, the sweet voice disappeared, the fake smile evaporated. What remained was ice, pure and sharp. "Lies," she spat. "I was solving a problem." Andres took a step back as if she had struck him. "What did you say?" Lucia laughed. But it wasn't a nervous laugh, it was a laugh of mockery, a laugh that showed who she really was. "Your mother is a burden, Andres, a useless old woman who consumes resources, time, space, and your life. I was just speeding up the inevitable." Clara felt nauseous. Andres was trembling. "Do you hear what you're saying?" "Of course I do. I'm tired of pretending." Lucia shrugged. "I married you for money. Did you really think it was love? Please." Clara covered her mouth. Andres seemed to be breaking inside. "Your mother was the only obstacle between me and the inheritance I deserve," Lucia continued. "The mansion, the jewel, it was all mine." "No," Andres roared. "You won't get anything. Not a cent." Lucia smiled. "You're too late. The will has already been changed. It's legal. It's signed. Everything is mine." Will signed by a doped woman is worthless in court," Andres retorted. Lucia crossed her arms. "Well, prove it. The lawyer who validated it is a friend of my family. He will swear that Doña Alba was lucid. And without concrete evidence, you have nothing." Andres raised his cell phone again. "I have all the evidence I need, and now you are leaving my house and you will answer for this to the law." Lucia lost her smile. For the first time, there was fear in her eyes. "Don't you dare," she hissed. "If you report me, I'll ruin your name. I'll say you knew about everything, that you were an accomplice. I'll invent whatever is necessary. Do it." Andres was firm. "I'd rather lose my reputation than let you go free." And he dialed. "Police? Yes. I want to report attempted murder." Lucia went pale. "Andres, no. Don't you dare." "I already did." She tried to run toward the door. Andres blocked her. She pushed him. He held her by the arms. "Let me go," she screamed. "No, you're going to pay for what you did." Clara watched from the doorway, unable to move. She saw Lucia's face distorted by rage. She saw the real panic in her eyes. She saw how, for the first time, she understood that she had lost. 10 minutes later, the police arrived. 2 officers entered the room. Andres showed them the videos, the photos, the audios, the medications, the forged will. Lucia was handcuffed right there, in front of everyone. "This is a mistake," she screamed as they took her down the stairs. "I'm innocent. I have lawyers. They'll defend you in jail," one of the officers replied emotionlessly. Clara watched as they put her in the patrol car, how the car crossed the gate, how she disappeared, and only then did she breathe. It was over. The truth had won. Andres returned to the room, knelt beside his mother, and took her hand. Doña Alba was crying silently. Thin tears ran down her fragile face. "Forgive me, Mom. Forgive me for not seeing." "You didn't know, son," Alba whispered. "I should have known. I should have been here." Alba squeezed his hand with the little strength she had. "You are here now, and that's all that matters." Andres turned to Clara, who was still in the doorway. "Clara, I don't even know what to say." Clara took a step. "You don't have to say anything, Mr. Andres." "Yes, I do," he replied, standing up. "You saved my mother's life. You risked everything. Your job, your safety. And I kicked you out, I accused you, I humiliated you." "You were manipulated," Clara said softly. "Lucia was very good at that." "No, I was blind." Andres looked down. "I trusted the wrong person and doubted the right one." He looked up, his eyes red. "I will never be able to repay you for what you did for us. But please, come back. Not as an employee, as family." Clara felt her eyes fill with tears. She looked at Doña Alba. The old woman was smiling. A faint but genuine gesture. "I'll come back," Clara whispered. "If Doña Alba wishes it." Alba nodded. "You are my guardian, Clara. You always were." And in that room that had been the scene of so much pain, there was finally peace. 3 months later, the mansion was different. Not because of the decor, but because of the life within it. Doña Alba was sitting on the terrace drinking tea. She was no longer so thin. Color had returned to her cheeks. She smiled as she flipped through a magazine. Beside her, Clara was setting the table with cookies. "Clara, sit with me," Alba said, patting the chair. "I just need to finish." "Sit," she repeated with gentle firmness. "It's an order." Clara smiled and sat down. "You saved my life," Alba said. "Do you know that? You would have saved yourself." "No. I had lost hope. I thought no one saw me, that I was a bother." Alba squeezed Clara's hand. "But you saw me when no one else did." Clara felt tears well up. "You deserve to be seen." Andres appeared through the terrace door with his work briefcase, but his face was calm. "Am I interrupting something?" "Just tea between friends," Alba replied. "Will you join us?" Andres pulled up a chair. "I received news today," he said. "Lucia's trial is scheduled for next month, and the lawyer who helped her, he will also be prosecuted." Clara nodded slowly. "The fake will was annulled. Everything is going back to normal." Alba sighed. "I don't want to think about her anymore. We've wasted too much time." "You're right, Mom." There was a moment of quiet silence. "Clara," Andres said, "I want to talk to you." "Tell me, Mr. Andres." "Stop calling me that. Just Andres." She smiled. He opened an envelope. "I want to offer you something. You are no longer an employee. You are part of this family. So I've named you house administrator. A decent salary, full benefits. And you will be responsible for coordinating all of my mother's care. Because I trust your judgment more than anyone's." Clara trembled. I don't know what to say." "Say you accept," Alba said with a smile. "Because I'm not letting you go." Clara laughed through tears. "I accept. Of course I accept." And on that terrace, there was peace. After so many shadows, finally light. That night, Clara went to the room that was now hers. No longer the tiny room in the back. Now a real bedroom, on the 2nd floor, with a view of the garden. She sat on the bed and looked around. She had traveled a long road. She had faced fear. She had risked everything. And she had won. Because in the end, the size of the house doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much money you have. What matters is having the courage to do the right thing, even when no one believes you, even when you are alone, even when it seems impossible. Clara lay down, closed her eyes, and slept in peace, for the first time in a long time, because justice had been served, and that was all she ever wanted.